Well, it's Monday. I hope you're up for the day and you're bathed in prayer and prepared for all that's going to come. Today we shift our focus to Proverbs chapter 1 as our proverb of the day, and in particular, verse 7 is our verse of the day, which reads, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction." Have you ever met a person who just doesn't seem to be open to any advice or instruction, and you can tell them something 1,000 times, but they're not going to do it because they've got their own way of doing things? Well, the Bible reminds us that fools despise wisdom and instruction, and it's better not to remind them that they're being foolish, or you might have twice the bad time that you're not looking for. One time, many years ago, the king of Hungary found himself depressed and unhappy. He sent for his brother, a good-natured but rather indifferent prince, didn't really care about much. The king said to the prince, "I am a great sinner. I fear to meet God." But the young prince only laughed at him. This didn't help the king's disposition any. Though he was a believer, the king had gotten a glimpse of his guilt for the way that he'd been living lately, and he seriously wanted some help, so he tried to reach out. Well, in those days, it was customary if the executioner sounded a trumpet before a man's door at any hour of day or night, it was a signal that they were about to be led to execution. The king sent the executioner in the dead of night to sound the fateful blast at his brother's door. The prince realized with horror what was happening and awoke from his sleep immediately. Quickly dressing, he stepped to the door and was seized by the executioner, dragged pale and trembling into the king's presence. In an agony of terror, he fell on his knees before his brother and begged to know how he had offended him. "My brother," answered the old king, "if the sight of a human executioner is so terrible to you, shall not I, having grievously offended God, fear to be brought before the judgment seat of Christ?" Well, thankfully, this was an object lesson for the young brother, and rather than being dragged before the scaffold, he was dragged before the king. And the king told him, it's wise to think about how we're living before God and to repent, to think about how the ways that we have lived and dedicated our lives have perhaps departed from what God calls us to do. The proverb reminds us that we ought to fear the Lord with fear and trembling. And indeed, this fear rather is a form of reverence, awe, and respect, rather than the kind of indifference that the young prince shows. So in our daily relationships, may we show deference, may we show wisdom, and may we show a contentment and a focus in our neighbors as they're telling us what matters to them. Let us show the love of a good and listening heart in the way that we keep our silence and attend to the needs of others.